Hey, what is up, headhunters and executive recruiters and all of the various groups that we are broadcasting live in, the headhunter and executive recruiter community, the independent recruiters, staffing. There's lots of them. Also, I'm trying to say. So with that said, welcome to the Headhunters and Boxers Talking Smack. And on the show is, of course, me, DSP, David, Stephen Patterson, and we have Neil Lebovitz, who, while maybe not the most handsome man on the show, is certainly the wealthiest and most charming, ladies. So gold diggers, there you go. And we have our special guest on the show, Joel. Joel from Headhunter Media, by the way. So Joel Lalgee. Is it Lalgee?
Lalgee.
Lalgee, like algae. Picture it like algae.
Lalgee like algae. That's it.
That's good. That's a good catchphrase in marketing.
I like it.
Joel, I have to ask before we get into the show, and we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of shit on LinkedIn going on that I want to complain about, but I do want to ask you this. I wish I had the dollar with me, but we're going to use this as Monster Zero Energy Ultra I'm about to crack open. So pretend this is all. Joel, could you show me on the doll where Neil touched you?
Right. See where that writing is? Right in the middle. It was right in the middle.
And of course, as I ask you, I'm leading the witness. I'm pointing to the butt. Can you show me where?
A little higher.
Is
there a butt on the can?
Well, you have to use your imagination on this one. That's all I had available at the moment. It was a spur of the moment decision to do that route. So yes, we are already off the rails, and we're less than 5 minutes into the show. So fantastic.
Well, but David, speaking of which, because we always joke that we lose sponsors, so I am both thrilled and dismayed. I'm thrilled that I was fortunate enough to be a guest on the Animal Show, which is an amazing show. As you know, you're going to be on it soon too, every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. Great show, really great. The dude's got sponsors coming out of his yin yang. Like, we're in the middle of this like amazing conversation, and he's like, "Sorry, gotta take a break." And now from our people at Hire Tool, or now from PC Recruit, and he's saying like all these big companies. At first, I thought he's goofing. These are serious sponsors that he's got. What the hell? So do we make? And I asked him, like, does he have a team? No, they're coming to him. What are we doing wrong? I guess Joel. Do you have sponsors? And we're gonna like.
No, I don't have a sponsor, but most of the people I know who have podcasts, they got sponsors going.
So what's the deal, David?
Well, okay, here's the thing. So we're actually, and actually it's a good time to announce it. Neil and I have been talking about this in our various backdoor dealings with our big cigars and cognac. And we're not even looking at it.
We're talking a Texas accent. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was in our big cowboy hats for whatever reason. And anyway, and we are actually releasing this as a podcast here very soon with all of our backdated our back episodes. That's going to be very, very exciting. So going to be the podcast coming out. I did a website, but we're going to kind of redo that website. So we're actually going to be putting a lot more marketing oomph behind the show. And so I think we're going to be we'll be on LinkedIn Live, I'm sure, here pretty soon. So we're going to be what I'm trying to say is if you said no to being on the show, you're gonna regret it when we blow. That's all I'm trying to say. But anyway, yes, that I think we'll, and if we do that, we may potentially get a sponsor.
I hope so. It's fun to just break away in the middle of a conversation and start talking about some crap about the sponsorship. I'll say our credibility has gone uphill since Danny Cahill. I've had a bunch of people, and I got another one. There's really some nice high level people say, "Hey, saw that you had Danny on the show." I think So we had our Danny Love Fest, but I think it's helped upgrade the whole Boxers brand, if you will.
You just gotta find the sponsors you want and get them on the show, and then they'll ask you, get someone who's from CRM or like some kind of video platform service, and just pitch them on the show, and then they'll be like, "Oh wait, we can sponsor this."
I like it.
Well, here's a question for you. I think in terms of I guess the brand, and Neil just said it. I've been thinking about this. I haven't talked to Neil, so we're gonna do this live right here on the show. What would you think about changing the name of the show to Headhunters and Boxers and drop the Talkin Smack? HIB.
Are you serious? Is this a serious question?
I've really thought about that. I thought about it. I've been being talked about it. I figure, well, let's just ask him on the
Why?
show.
Do you think smack lowers the brand? It makes it too stupid or silly? I mean, boxers, if anything, would be the lowest common denominator in my mind, right?
Well, I think I like the Headhunters of Boxer. I like the HIB. I'm big about acronyms. You hashtag HIB. But I think it'd be a catchier title. I think the Talkin Smack. I do like it, but it's just a long title. Headhunters of Boxer or Headhunters Talkin Smack. That could be a doable as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're like, which is you're saying that boxers is higher on the totem pole than smack, and I they're both, one's kind of hip and like whatever. Maybe smack has a negative connotation. Boxers has a sort of sexual, immature fraternity sound. Together, I think I hear what you're saying, because now we're taking the fraternity juvenile thing along with the talking smack. So you're right. I think it's bad. Maybe we could ask people on chat to chime in and let us know their thoughts, because after all, it's not about us, David.
It's not about, it's about the audience.
Them.
It's about you, the viewer, right there.
You guys.
Touching you right there. I love you.
Yeah,
no,
so
that's where he touched me, by the way, right there with that.
Right there, where he touched you, right there in the lens. Well, I guess on that note, please feel free to chime in. And if you have questions for Joel, by the way, also feel free to chime in the chat. Let's talk about Joel for a bit. There actually is a guest that Neil asked to be on, and yeah, I'll let you guys take it over. So, tell us about you, Joel, and Headhunters and media.
Well, and again, I always like, you do this all. You've gotten good for a while. Now you're back to going right to them without me giving, because people are too shy to totally brag or whatever. So here's Joel's deal and why he's on the show. Joel is he's two things that he brings today. One, he's really networked within the recruiting world as a thought leader, podcaster. But we'll get into that in a second. I just met him. He's a guy that offers some things that I think are really cool. It adds on to what you do, DSP, in terms of digital stuff. Joel's a content provider, and really for recruiters, and he'll get into that and what it is, and it's a kind of unique space, and I like what he does and how he does it. And as we're talking, he's talking about, I'm like, how are you getting your, that's a hard gig, dude. How are you getting your people? He's like, I got tons of people. I'm like, how? He's like, I got this. I got my podcast. I'm like, well, what podcast? And then and he starts telling me about. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. I'm like, yeah, well, you're talking to Headhunters and Boxers Got Smacked, dude. But go ahead, Joel. What's your deal? And he starts spitting off all these guests that he has, and I'm like, what the F? So let's talk about that for a minute. Give us, don't be shy here. Start spitting off all of the guests that you just off the top of your head. This isn't planned. Talk about the guests that you have regularly on your show.
Yeah, so today the guest is going to be Bert Miller, who is CEO of MRI Network. Last week I had Greg Savage, who obviously is an Australian legend and just recruiting legend in general. And one of the first episodes I had was with Lou Adler. That's a great first show. It was like my first time live streaming, and first time really going live with anyone. And Lou Adler was the guest, so that was big. And then outside of that, really a lot of the guests are, really accomplished CEOs, presidents of staffing firms, of recruiting firms. And that's really the goal of it, is to be able to promote them. And I just love hearing people's stories in recruiting. But then my big push is how is the industry changing? Obviously, we all know at this point, and I think the pandemic really helps hammer this in, digital is the way of the future. I mean, it's been the way of the future, but now I think a lot more people are catching on to the fact that
it's back
digital threat.
Back to the future, really now.
Back
full circle.
It is.
How do you get Lou Adler in your first show?
By the way,
not what?
Well, all right. I will say this, actual digital, because I will say this. I remember there was a time, not that long ago, when in a world where a recruiter that wanted to learn about digital would go to the trainers and say, I want to learn about digital. And those trainers would be like, get a lead magnet, biggest higher stakes, drive traffic to a landing page, and if they download, it means they have a need, and then that was the advice back in the day.
That was good advice then.
No, it's not. Like
in the day, it wasn't when it first came out. That wasn't when everyone's just hoping people come to their website.
Well, because you know what it is because you take advice from say somebody's selling, I don't know, how to do LinkedIn or how to make money online.
Frank Kern, is that what you're thinking about? Like that kind of guy?
Yeah, you have typically a less sophisticated buyer, right? Somebody who is, trying to be an entrepreneur. Now, if I'm trying to reach a CIO or VP of IT, they ain't gonna download 5 top hiring date. Like they're gonna download that. They're not downloading that, and it's a different type of person. You need a different hook to get them in. And I think what happens is you have people who weren't doing it, and they're like, well, works over here. I downloaded things, mistakes, and then they did that. And that was a lot of the advice back then. I think now the industry has definitely matured a lot very quickly, which is really cool the last few years. Now the advice given out there actually works because we're out there doing it every single day. But I will say when I first got into doing it, that was kind of the main advice, and it was
but you know what? But in defense of that advice, and maybe it's because I was one that gave some of that advice. But listen, I'm talking about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. I'm not talking about 30. I'm talking about literally when no one was doing anything. That the concept was totally novel. People were driving people and trying to get SEO, and it was all about just random emails or posting all this great content on their website, hoping that beautiful content's going to mean people are going to use them. So then, like stop giving it away. At least get their information so you could get involved with them. Right. So, so I did that. But again, that's 11 years ago. And that's Frank Kern early years, not Frank Kern today selling everything, expert on everything all the time. Isn't that amazing? These experts become experts. When the next thing comes out, they immediately are the expert on it. Right. Just like COVID. Yeah. Like all these trainers are, here's how to survive COVID. How the fuck do you know how to survive COVID? I don't.
Wait a minute. Did they know about COVID before?
Right. But they know it instantly, dude. I swear to God, like February 28th, as soon as COVID was announced as a thing, on the 29th, trainers were posting the solution to COVID selling. I don't know. It's funny. And the experts on marketing, it's the same thing. Like, I get that they are definitely visionaries. A lot of them, some aren't. Some are charlatans. But they immediately know the next thing and they become experts on it. It's just funny to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, they understand the principle of how things work. Honestly, when you look at the principles of marketing, the buyer's journey, and how people respond psychologically to different things, I think if you apply those principles to your cold calls, to your digital marketing, to your content, to your emails, I mean, it's all it all runs on the same principles. There's just different mediums. And I think the ones who do really well with that, they understand the principles and they can apply it right. It's the ones, as opposed to there's other folks that jump on the bandwagon and they don't, they're not really talking about basic like people sell just templates and templates. They don't teach how to construct the thing.
Yeah.
And
that's like people don't understand. I mean, the big thing with templates, because I run in this all the time. A lot of the clients that I have will say, well, why would I pay, for your time where I can pay $250, I get 20 random blogs and I get to pick out, for $200 I get access to 200 blogs. I pick out the one which sounds most like me. And it's like, well, the whole idea of social media is for it to be an extension of yourself. So the less your voice is actually involved, you might as well not even post. And so the idea right now is post every single day, which is true. You got to be consistent. You got to have that brand awareness. But if you're just posting pretty, pictures of motivational, memes or motivational quotes because that's what Gary Vee's doing, you're missing. You're not looking at the 20 years of hustle and sweat that he put in, where no one was watching, and he was building up a loyal audience, and you're not really saying anything. So if I go through your LinkedIn, your Instagram, and I look through, and I don't know anything about you, then your content is useless because you're not saying anything, and it's there's a disconnect with like what social media actually is and what virality means, and then how to take small connections and turn them into something meaningful. And that's where I come in. I want to actually work with people, understand their voice, get their voice. And then, David, this is where obviously you're training people on how to do that. I'm basically saying, okay, anyone who's been trained and actually just doesn't have the time, let me come in and I'll actually do it for you. But I still want you involved in the process. Like I can't write content and I can't outsource it if I don't know anything about you. And if you don't have the time for me to get to know you, then I can't work with you because what story am I going to tell? If that makes sense.
Well, it does. It's like the way I look at it too is it's not only putting your own personality on it, because you have to put your own spin on things, but it's also in your audience. I mean, it's like it's almost like where I get folks who. So I teach people digital marketing. I also teach cold calling and all that kind of jazz, the whole nine. And when you've got a script, right, and you've got a cold calling script. And a cold calling script should speak to pains pretty quickly. That's how you hook a prospect in to listen to you for another 2 or 3 minutes. Because when you cold call, what you really are trying to do is get by enough time to get your foot in the door, and then by enough time to get even a more foot in the door. And that's going to hold you, right? So you got to speak to the pains. Well, if you're using some generic pains that you've heard from other trainers doesn't work. You take the formula and then you go talk to your audience, talk to every VP and director and whatever that you can. And right now it's super easy because they're all kind of worried about the market. Talk to them and find out what their pains are and take what they say and boom, put that right into your scripts, and then you got a lethal script. But people, unfortunately, it's like the 90% of people that aren't willing to even do just that. All they do is I just give me the easy button, please. And I think it makes a great opportunity for the folks who aren't that 90% to say, I want to really nail this thing. I want to dial this thing in, make this lethal. And those people that always succeed because everybody else is using templates and everybody else is being vanilla and everybody else is using other people's shit.
Yeah.
So too nuts. And you got to put your own spin on it,
Yeah.
Joel, give us an example of what sorts of things you provide for like a recruiter or someone that wants to get, or like me, like I'd be, very interested, as we talked about, in engaging you. Like what would, like for me, and I got my show and I can, so how's it work?
Yeah, great question. So full disclosure here too, obviously I'm like 2 months into this. So there's definitely a lot of learning along the way. From a real basic relationship standpoint, the way I start off is I meet with a client once a week and I ghostwrite for them. So that's like the basic package. It's an hourly rate. Meet with them, hear their story, start writing content. And I do that for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm not trying to sign someone up for a $5,000 retainer that wants ROI in like 3 days. Like it's not going to work. It's to get results, it takes consistency. And also it gets them a sense of what I'm about, and I get to get a sense of what they're about. So it's about finding that right partnership. After that, we have different levels that we can engage. So I've had a lot of clients that want to get into podcasting. So I say, okay, well, why podcasting? And if the answer is, well, that's what I've been told is the next thing, we just dial that in, and you got to get to that why and that reason of why you want to do it. Personally, I think podcasting is a great way to get in front of the prospects that you want to get in front of. So you start with placed candidates. You start with people that you already have relationships with. You promote them, and then you go up the food chain till you get like the Lou Adler, or the big guy in the industry that you want to be on the podcast. So I help people with that, and then video too. Video content's the other big piece of it. And so I will either do basic edits for them, which is like the lower tier, or we can actually look at putting together a branding package where we essentially personal brand them in a way that's not necessarily even going to be attractive to clients or candidates. Really, I look at it as a great way to attract high-level recruiters that are going to add to your book of business and your business. So if you attract $1 million book of business guy, you're gonna add a lot to your bottom of your business line. But you've got to have that. You've got to have that presence on social media. You got to have something that that kind of personality that people want to work for. And so that's where the branding comes in. And that process is a lot more in depth. Probably takes about 10 or 15 hours just to come up with the branding for those videos. So it's a lot more intense. But if you're like, hey, I just want to do video, then get the selfie out. We go through topics, do the video, and then we just do a basic edit of it.
Yeah, no, David, was I wrong in that there's a real synergy between what you offer in your programs and what he does, or did I mess up totally? I know there's some overlap, probably. Where's the overlap, and where?
Yeah, but there is. I mean, for me, what I do is so mine is I do a little bit of that, but not really. I don't get into the let's just figure out your branding. I'm already assuming that you're coming in, you already know what you are and all that, and it's let's turn it up a million times. Then we work on getting the offer together, the components of the offer, how to sell it. I'm very much a lot of my training. Again, I'm the digital headhunter, but a lot of my training really is very, very aggressive, hard-nosed sales. Get in there, and so it's taking that foundation, but that shit ain't gonna work unless you got all your branding and everything on point, because then you're just a leg humper, there's and in fact, there's a rule that I talk about sometimes. There's a 7-hour rule in sales, and granted, it's not like a hard and fast rule, but it's a good rule of thumb. You need 7 hours of time with the prospect for them to do business with you, or to trust you enough. And at 7 hours could be the form of steak dinner, drinks, or it could be a video, it could be a PDF you send them, it could be just seeing you in an ad, voicemail, phone calls, just whatever. And if you could front load that as much as possible with content and videos and all that, you're clocking time.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge, yeah. And so, and it makes and that way you don't have to do backflips on a sales call to make something happen. And a lot of that, what you're talking about, does a lot of the heavy lifting for you on the front end.
Right, but
especially, so David, you get someone for a podcast and you spend, 30 minutes on the prep for the podcast and then 45 minutes and you're promoting them. I mean, that takes a huge chunk of that 7 hours, and then not necessarily thinking, oh, this is sales based. But that's, again, I think you have to, I tell people, like, with the podcast, like, you can't do a podcast unless you're into the podcast. Like, you can't do a podcast just purely because you want to do it for sales. It's because it's it's like when people set you up for a webinar, which is like the new thing. Like, we'll do the COVID preparedness webinar, and then you get on the webinar, it's just a sales pitch for 45 minutes. Unless you've got something that's entertainment.
It's so funny, man, the webinar. So it's funny. So I talked to someone I was getting to work with my back office company, and he's like, well, and he's a really great guy, and we connect, and I think he's going to eventually join. But as he's working with a competitor, he's like, yeah, but I'm like their spokesperson on it. He does all webinars for them, and he loves it. And I'm like, well, what's the end game? Like, why? And he's into it because it's great for his networking. He gets actually referrals from it. He's like becoming a name from it. I'm like, but it's a webinar, dude. It's freaking 20-year-old technology. Like, how many people are on your webinar? 50? I'm like, go live. I'm like, get your Facebook live in the group. You'll have 600 people watching it. Like, what's that?
Don't call it a webinar. And don't call it a webinar. That's
what should they call it? No, but to me, it's like, why when you have all these other things? I mean, I guess, but you get so few people. I was on, and I'm going to shut up a second. I was invited, and I think I mentioned this to Ben's group, but I was invited to this show about temporary staffing and the thought leaders, and it's about COVID. And it was this friggin' 2-month production of your bio and the rehearsals, and 22 people on the friggin' group that I was in. Right? I'm like, we could reach, 22 people in seconds. Like, I don't know. It just seems so old school. And so anyway, that's just me going off to
but you're right, because you can stream live on multiple channels in a moment, and then you can repurpose the content. And obviously it's like, even repurposing, you start mentioning things like that, and you start mentioning how you can repurpose a live stream, and then you can put it on different social channels. But then I just always come back to like it's just like understanding like the why. So if someone goes, yeah, I want to get big on Instagram, I go, well, why Instagram? Like, what's the actual business value? Well, because we're behind the times.
That's because their daughter is like, being an influencer, and whatever, right? Like, yeah, that's not our game. Not that Instagram's not good.
I don't have the butt to be big on Instagram, but hey, what was crazy? There was something came out. It was a poll. They asked American children what they wanted to be when they grew up, and they asked Chinese children what they wanted to be. Chinese said astronaut. American children said an influencer.
Yeah,
no, they did not. They did not. No, is that true?
Hey, I want to be a YouTuber, man. I mean, those guys making millions, man, just having fun. It's awesome. But
it is the guy that say the eagle has landed. I mean, man.
It's all fake. That's done in the studio. All right, so a couple of things. So one, Joel, if you can tilt your head forward for a second for the group, just tilt your head forward a little for us. I want to see that man bun thing. Well, what is that? So that's we saw that during the show.
Top now.
No, but that's like one of those Chinese. Yeah, it's a sushi guy thing. Like, what is that, dude? Are you?
Okay, look, I quit my job
cool.
2 months ago. I started my own business. I mean, I got to do something. I can't afford a dope setup, so I was like, you know what,
I quit my job. I'm gonna grow a Chinese sushi man hair gob thing. That's what I'm gonna do one day.
Well, then too, just when I come in and I go, hey, I'm really creative, and I got strategy, I got marketing strategy, and I'm creative. This just adds to all that. I mean, right? I mean, you gotta
the exclamation point, right?
Exactly.
It's like exactly. Well, it's why I will say this: when I got my sleeve, I was a little worried at first, what people would think, because I was still working, relatively professional work. Yeah, I was working relatively professional. And I don't like Mark sleeves.
Jersey Jew boy, total wuss. I got nothing, nothing.
Like you so bad your grandkids.
Yeah. You would have beat the piss out of me in high school, brother.
But I'd say no. I was not like I was kind of nerdy in school, but I was a late bloomer. But I will say, yeah, I did. I was really worried about getting the sleeve, and then I got it, and as long as the only person who cares. If you don't care, you just roll with it, and your stuff is good. Doesn't matter,
dude. It's like that with anything, right? It's like dating. We talk about online dating and dating people a lot. Like, I don't care if a girl's what she would consider fat, 20 pounds heavier. I own it, man. I just want them to own it. I want them to just feel confident and sexy, and like, so what? Like, I'm not like the slimmest girl. Like, so it's all about that. You got whatever it is. You got to own it. Got to own your podcast. You got to own your branding. You got to own your sleeve. Got to own your Chinese 100%. Samurai thing.
Wait till I get it cut in the sides. That's the next part.
Oh, that'll look good. Yeah, totally. And then you could use David's axe thingy, that psycho thing we showed in the beginning.
Dude, I need that axe for my logo, man.
Yeah, look, that's.
Dude, I kid you not, all right? This is like maybe 5 years ago when I first got into recruiting. So that shows you, the level that I'm at 5 years in. So anyway, I was like, it would be awesome, like, if I had a big old, like, Viking type fur, and then I had an axe, and I was just like the Headhunter. That would be awesome. And then obviously then, like, all the haters came in. They're like, oh, no, dude, no CEO will ever take you seriously. I'm like, cool. That's what I want.
I wanted to be a prop comic. I wanted to be the Carrot Top of recruiting. Was my I just wanted to prop.
You want to be Jack on steroids? Sorry, Mexican supplement. Mexican supplement.
Prop comic. That's where the prop comedy is. That's what my parents said. Neil, prop comedy is where it's all going to go. It started with Gallagher at the watermelon, and I didn't see the writing on the wall for the future. I didn't see the opening for a Carrot Top.
Carrot Top ruined prop comedy. Not ruined it, but he owns it. There cannot be another prop comic at the level or the bench press numbers of Carrot Top.
Did you know? I read someone who makes like $50 million a year in Vegas. Some stupid crap. Like,
crazy.
He's a regular sellout show in the day.
I believe.
And actually, speaking of that level, JP Sears, like the Awaken with JP. If you look at his videos from like 3 years, that dude was so skinny, and now JP's got the long red hair, does silly videos, the dumb spiritual guy. You know what I'm talking about? I know, like, he's pretty big on YouTube, a few million subscribers. Anyway, go look, but he's pretty funny. That said, okay, we're going down the road here. I do want to bring this up, going back to some of the guests you're having on. One of my problems, Joel, and I've as I grow bigger and as I do more of a marketing push, my website just went live, and we're doing all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
I'm going to start being a little bit nicer, because I've realized that there are some folks that might want to interview at some point that I have made fun of in the past, and then I was kind of kind of worries me, because when you're listening at your guests, I'm like, oh man, there's one of them.
You know what, David? It's funny because I've changed, as people could see in this show. Right, the early shows were extremely racy, and it's my sense of humor, right? And I totally love them, but it's not for everyone. And you could say, well, be yourself, and that's where you get that's where you're successful. But I'm totally myself now. This is myself, but I don't need. I like what you're just saying. I can filter what is going to not stop me from being me, but not offend people. And I had one person really 2 weeks ago that I reached out. It happened to be an automation on LinkedIn, and then we're going to segue into LinkedIn in a minute. And she was like, "You're the last person I want to have in my network. Don't talk to me." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, so I said, if you don't mind, like, I'm really sorry you feel that way. I'd love if you would be kind enough to just share why you said that, because that's certainly a comment. And, basically let me know. I don't like you're too crude, but she also felt that me and you and Ben are opportunists, and that we're out there doing all this to make a dime. And doesn't like that about us. So now that you can't stop because.
Are you telling me you have bills to pay and you want to earn money? You bastard!
I know. But I'm saying the first part, I took umbrage. Is that the right word? But the first part, I'm like, you know what? It's I don't need to have any, because when people deal with me in business, I'm intense. I'm super professional. I look like my background. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to give the image that I'm not that. But still, look, I'm fun and I'm silly and I'm goofy and I'm going to engage and we're going to have a great time when we work together. So is that what you're saying, right? I think.
Yeah. When we connect, that's why I love you to death, like a brother. You're like me.
Is that what you mean, David, about toning it down, like just saying stuff that offended, or you're talking about directly going after people?
Well, actually, not so that. Although I know that you see that, but actually, there are a couple of folks I've actually have emailed my list and said, "Hey, see what this person did? Don't do that. Here's why." And because sometimes people do like dumb things online, and I try to, so we'll sometimes I won't mention them by name, but I'll say, hey, here's what this person did. Do not do that. That is bad news. Don't and I think a lot of times people, just because somebody's big doesn't mean they know what they're doing. Absolutely. And people will copy what they do, and they'll end up shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah,
and that's
Well, so you want to hear a funny story?
I would say too, with the trying to get the guests, like, so one of the reasons I try and get big guests, right, is because one of the things that I fight against always in sales is the fact that, people can look and go, well, what do you know? You've only been in the industry for 5 years. So obviously if I start having guests, I mean, part of that is like a credibility pull on that as well. But I would say I definitely position it as like, this is a podcast where I'm wanting to learn, I'm wanting to grow. So that's the feel of it. And it's okay, because a lot of that's, a lot of the audience that I have is, people who are just starting out in recruiting industry, or, people who are learning. So that's the way I position it, which is where I think I get the guests. I would say, unless those guests are people that you are going to actually have a synergy with on the show, or unless they're completely in line with the mission of the show, why would you even want them on there? Because I obviously, like, you have a lot of credibility, and like, you're one of the people who everybody mentions and everybody talks about. So I think
which one, David or me?
David.
Son of a bitch.
Because think about like what I'm pitching. Like, I'm pitching media services to recruiters. So a lot of recruiters I reach out to will be like, hey, I've taken David's course. I'm in his group right now. I'm getting ongoing coaching from him. But it's like, I'm not at that level. So it's like, I have to kind of get that with like credibility. So if I tell someone, hey, I want to get you on the live show, a lot of people like, I don't want to be on the live show. Then I start naming like 2 or 3 people have been on the live show, and they're like, oh, I'll do your live show. So it's kind of like understanding it's within that strategy. But I would say if you get them, if the purpose of your show is something different, like, that's okay. And like, why, unless those guests are going to add to what your audience cares about, I wouldn't even go after them.
wasn't much making the joke, but I will say you're 100% right, and you're right about the credibility thing. When you're out there selling, and I talk about this in my training sometimes about a status delta. It's about having that alpha position, where it's kind of like when a police officer flash, boom, instant credibility. You're gonna do what they say, right? And a lot of times but they flash you, then you're like, oh, okay, you're a joker. So being able to say on a sales call, hey, by the way, I've got this show and I've had this guest on this. What you're doing is you're flashing the badge, saying I have credibility.
Totally.
What I say. And by the way, it's a great lesson for recruiters. When you are on a sales call, here's a little tip for you guys. Always be thinking about status delta at all times. Never be a puppy dog. Never follow all their instructions. You get on a sales call with a prospective client. Before you get into, hey, great, well, thanks for taking the call. So what are you looking for? Like a little puppy dog. First, take a step back and say, hey, let me tell you a little bit about myself, Mrs. Client or Mr. Prospect, whatever, and think status delta. What can you do really quick to flash the badge? Whether it be, we've worked with this company, we've done this, but on this, just do it really quick and make annoy the prospect. That's fine, as long as you can really quickly within the first couple of establish a massive status delta immediately. It's run a webinar this like, hey, here's about me, here's my story. They're doing that. It might be annoying to you, but people still buy because it works. Establish your status delta, flash the badge. He's flashing a badge. He's basically building a badge, and it's really effective. Really effective.
You know what I do in my version of that, and I've never quite positioned it that way, but I absolutely, I let them know I'm not a kid. I'm not coming in there to be a cold person. You're going to blow off or treat me like a subordinate. I'll talk to them very quickly. They normally say something I don't agree with, or I think they're barking up the wrong tree. They call it objection handling, but I let them know, hey, listen, I don't agree with that approach, or I think there's some flaws in the way you're handling it. Like I go right at it. Now I explain it. I'm totally professional. I go into objection handling mode, but I absolutely let them know, like, I'm not here to be your yes man, right? And to come in credibility that way. Hey, I want to just come back to something before that affects David and your point also, Joel, about writing in the person's voice. So, like, I'd be curious. So my second part of the question is, how do you write in a David's voice? Because he has a very unique one when he writes. And in fact, what's so interesting is when you have your voice, it totally works. I made the mistake of when we had Danny Cahill on the show. We did some great marketing and stuff, and I was swamped. And I took David's and I copied and pasted it into my readers, and it had some real problems. I got some people, like, it just didn't fit. Like David's, I love the style, but I had one hate mail from it. I posted it actually in the group pages of my group. But this guy just went off on me. That's the most unprofessional thing I've ever read. You're taking the industry down the toilet. You're sounding like we're in a fraternity. No, but it works because that's your tone all along, and they know you and you have the credibility with it. For me to start talking about and we're gonna hug Danny's nipples and all that stuff, and this guy was furious with me, and he wrote too, so the tone's important, and so how do you emulate David? How do you do that?
Yeah, number one, it's and this is where, I guess the same in recruiting. Like, you got to get time with the client. So I have to have at least half an hour to an hour a week, and then I'm basically just coming up with the topics and asking questions. So almost doing like a podcast episode with them each week that's very all centered on their story. I'm taking the notes. I'm hearing how they're saying things, hearing like their attitude, hearing, are they direct, or are they a little bit more standoffish? Like, are they trying to be more polished and refined, or are they more in your face? So I'm taking all those notes, and then I basically will put together the content, upload it onto a Google Doc. And then I just tell them, like, okay, you're going to have to go through at least for the first couple of weeks and just edit and change things to make it sound exactly like, how you would say it. Do you
think you can get as nuanced as like a David, which is like, hey, let me tell you the story about the woodpecker and the girl, and she blew him off. And you know what? Because she didn't have this going on.
Let me tell you
why this mattered. And then he gets right into like some really cool shit and funny. And very him. So
he would be in that first call. Like, if I was to say, okay, David, tell me about your thought on headhunting compared to recruiting, for example. He's gonna say what he's gonna say actually in a more comfortable place than even him writing himself, because it's just, he doesn't feel that pressure of, and I'm not saying you specifically, but the person who I'm meeting with, they don't feel the pressure of like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a LinkedIn post. How do I make it a LinkedIn post? How do I make this a social post? They're just going to speak freely. And then I'm able to like really hear exactly how they're saying it. So for example, I have one client that's kind of more up and coming, and I can just tell like she's wanting to be more refined because she's already battling with the fact that the audience is going to view her as younger and going to view her that she doesn't have credibility. On the flip side, I have a client that's been in the industry for 25 years, and he's the most direct guy. So the content's completely different. So the content for the second guy is a lot more direct. It's a lot more calling people out. It's a lot more that, because that's who he is. And it's not even a case of like likes, views, followers. It's a case of just real voice getting out there. And, you know, if you do that for 6 months to a year, you know, when you get on the worst thing I can ever think of is you get on a call with someone and they're like, wait, this is like way different than your content. Like if that ever is an issue, it's almost like you lose credibility right away. So
like a fraud, like you led them on, like catfish.
Yeah,
you brand catfish.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And you know what? I've run into this all the time with people on LinkedIn and social where they'll be like, yeah, I really, care about relationship, or I really care about people. And then you get on the phone with them and they're like the complete opposite. And I'm like, why not? Why weren't you just being real the whole time? You get what I'm saying?
It's a lot like, as I mentioned, like flashing the badge, right? Versus being a puppy dog. You
Totally.
get somebody who, brands professionally and we're the best, and they get on the line and they're just, puppy dog, Mickey Mouse, Romper House, just like taking the, as opposed to, if you're flashing the badge and you're kind of telling them what's up. I mean, you can turn a prospect into a little warm buttery kitten if you project the right badge and have the right status belt and say the right things and do in such a way where they buy right into it.
100%.
But I think so many people have this professional image, and then what happens is it's like catfishing. You almost let the prospect down. They were coming in thinking you were a professional. It's like going to a doctor and you've got cancer, maybe, or whatever. You go into a doctor, you think, oh my gosh, they're the best doctor in Tampa, and they got all the degrees, and you go in and that doctor's like, oh, what can I get for you, sir? What can I do? Like, dude, I can't take this guy seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not gonna have this guy take my brain apart. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we have an interesting segue into our news today, because we're going to do it without Joel. Joel's got a hard stop right about now because Joel has his podcast. So the podcast goes on in 10 minutes right after our show. Where do people tune in if they want to get a little more taste of Joel, a little more than 50 minutes of Joel, a little more Joel time, a little more JJ, a little more JT?
So LinkedIn for sure. I do the live stream, but then I also it all streams live on YouTube as well, and then it gets stored on the YouTube channel. I got an amazing 2 subscribers right now, but that's just because I haven't promoted it at all in terms of like the subscribe to the channel.
So they could just find your profile on LinkedIn, go to it, they'll get to see your show in 10 minutes.
100%. Yep. It'll be live streaming. And then, and then obviously the goal is I'm trying to practice what I preach. So as soon as I have, everything takes time, but as soon as I have the time, start repurposing some of the content on YouTube, put them on other social channels. But everyone, I think the biggest lesson I would give to everybody is, man, you gotta start from somewhere with a lot of this stuff. And it's like, you just can't beat yourself up over, I had a guy 2 days working with him. He's like, why am I not getting any views? And I'm like, man, you're 2 days in. You got to think long-term with this every time.
Well, speaking of that, that's a good lesson, actually. Hopefully I'm not keeping you too long here, Joel.
No, you're good.
What you just said really rings true. I heard this advice actually from like a Russell Brunson podcast.
Oh yeah.
A few years ago, it had a really great, very insightful lesson or insight. It said, when you're starting out and you're pushing your content out there, what people tend to do is they want to wait until they're big and successful to start putting out content. But unfortunately, what happens is you're not very good at it, right? So what you do is you start when no one's listening,
100%.
and that's how you build your skill. And then as you pick up listeners along the way, by the time you get big, you're very well practiced. And that's what people need to realize. It's better to start. You're not getting any viewers yet. good. Now you can screw up and no one's gonna, and it's not gonna mess you up. Go out, screw up, get those mistakes behind you and build that skill. That's what people need to realize, right?
Yeah.
It's a long.
Well, I would say one of my first posts, I did emoji arithmetic. All right. So I did like hard work plus heart equals success. All right. That's how bad my content was.
Wow.
Now I'm based that. Yeah. And I would get like on that. I remember on that post, I got like 400 views. Right now I'm averaging 50,000 views a day, and the content level has gone up because why? Because I've written over 600 posts. I've done over 100 videos. I've just gotten better. And I'm thankful that at the beginning, those posts didn't get the 50,000 views because I would look dumb. But to your point, it's like you just get better with things. You up the production. Like the worst mistake you can make is to go out and spend $20,000 on production. It's like figure out your message and figure out your voice and figure out what you actually want to be. Then start the production. You can always buy. A message and a brand is really, really hard to develop. And it's like, just develop that first, then work on the production. You know, it's like,
or you could do
hire me.
Yep.
Or hire Joel.
So Joel, thank you for being on the show. People,
but I will say this. Yeah. Or you can write a post that starts with, I hired someone with no experience and no control, and then write like no degree, came in soaking wet, but I hired her anyway. Now she's the CEO, and the people look at you like, you got one employee. Do that, like do
that, and you'll go viral. And I mean that's the Shanae, Chris Hummel, all these guys.
A funny story, by the way, quickly, and then Joe, you're gonna run. My daughter, she's 14 years old. She comes to me 2 weeks ago. Daddy, I went viral on TikTok. I'm like, what do you mean you went viral? She's like 130,000 views. I'm like, what did you do? She's like, nothing. Me and my friends were just getting ready for a party. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. So you know what that's all about. So like, freaking kids, TikTok. So Joe, want to thank you before you leave. I want you to hear a professional news backdrop. I want you to hear the music, the intro. We're going to go into news. You're free to disagree. Just want you to see the quality of the production that David and we've spent literally tens of dollars on our setup, and for tens of viewers, and we want you to see it. David, any last thoughts for Joel?
No, I'm good to go. Joel, it's a pleasure having you on. Let's actually, Joel, reach out to me over the weekend or early next week. We'll chat to you. But that said, best of luck in your endeavors. You've been a fantastic guest. I love the way you look at things, man. It's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, appreciate both you guys, and we'll talk soon.
So I'm brother.
All right.
Be in touch.
Later. Hey, do you want me to do the video now?
Yeah.
Video.
And newsflash, November 12th, 2020. No, sorry, I do that every time because I don't know. And I was never old enough to go.
What? CNN fake news is nothing on us. Anyway, as we were saying. So, what kind of
CNN fake news? Listen, CNN is totally fake news, but I'm going to tell you, my man, because again, I'm totally moderate. Everyone hates me is my problem. I like my left friends hate me. How dare you say this about Biden, or how do you say that? And my right-wing friends, hate me because how dare you think this? And I find Fox News to be as fake news, Fox itself, as CNN. I find them both to just be totally ridiculously one-sided, absurdly.
I challenge you to the CNN challenge, sir.
Which is
CNN challenge is during the day. Go turn on Fox News. There'll probably be a hurricane here, or international news there. Turn on CNN. And the Orange Man said this. And then go back. And then an hour later, go back to Fox News. And they're talking about this other thing in Syria. And turn on CNN. And the Orange Man spelled this wrong. That's the CNN challenge, sir.
Well, so I totally don't even need to do it. I'm with you. The funniest thing is, and again, I watch both of them. I really do. I love the dichotomy. No, I very much watch both. I really do. And I always, and election day, I went back and forth between it. I love the whole ridiculously broad angle you get with both of them. There was one with Chris Cuomo when he's being grilled by Giuliani. or it might have been the one with Ted Cruz. And it was basically saying, look, you're totally political. You're totally one-sided. And Chris Cuomo, like, at least admit why he's like, what? I am like shocked that he feels like he's biased somehow. Like, I don't understand how at least he doesn't recognize like how.
Well, Cuomo faked his quarantine. Did you know that?
I heard that. I heard that.
It's verified. He admitted it. He admitted it on a radio show, and he totally faked it. Totally faked. You want to admit it live now, but he admitted it on a radio show. And there are eyewitnesses. It was crazy. Yeah, it's all fake news, man. I look at moderation like Ben Franklin looked at moderation. He says, moderation in all things, including moderation.
Yep. But what happened the day when you really could feel like, even in the day, like Dan Rather is so left, obviously, totally left. But I don't know that I sensed the extreme of his left-wingism 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
So like you're getting the real deal when you're listening to the news. You felt like it was fair and balanced and real. And even if it was news they didn't agree with, he still told it to you. That's what it felt like back in the day.
But why doesn't it exist anywhere though? Like, why is it? It's one. There isn't one place I have found where I can get someone that is gonna the balance. And they're fair and balanced news. You're not. You're this side. You're that side. Like, why is that?
It doesn't get the clicks,
No, but it does though, right? Half the country is split. Half the people. I think it would get the clicks, unless you just want to hear what you want to hear.
But what happened is, like, I heard this and it made sense when you look at how things get clicks and how the algorithms kind of force this sort of separation we have. And so when you have Facebook that says, okay, police brutality gets this many clicks, and then like, oh my gosh, and then racism gets this many clicks, and then to transsexual, okay, cop brutality, racist, transex, you combine all in the headlines because they're trying just to get this rage bait click. And what they've done is they used to be clickbait and then turned to rage bait, and they found that the more people just were angry, like they did studies where if people are angry, they share more, they click more, right? They're more invested in getting that out there than if it's good news. It's like, all right, that's kind of cool, like granted kitten things, but the things that get really viral things. And so what happened, I think a lot of them just kind of chase the dollars, unfortunately, and then they'll post something that's like, they'll get 1 million views, 1 million clicks, and then the retraction a week later gets like 50,000 clicks. They make money both ways, but the damage is done. I think a lot of times, unfortunately, it's on both sides for sure. I think unfortunately it's just it's just all about just making.
But it would be great if we had a show like on CNN so like I said, I went between everything on election day. They had Rick Santorum on regularly, nonstop. I loved that they did that because he was sitting there saying nonsense. Like, no, I agree at this point. This point's ridiculous, guys. You'd be told, like, I love that. And I'm not saying that, wow, CNN got how wonderful they did that. I just mean I like the concept. And Fox has that too when they'll, bring on a liberal sometimes for the fighting points. And they have that one guy that's always on there, the liberal guy, right? I just wish there was a lot of that on a lot of the stations where it's just, let's go. Let's hear it all. This way everyone could, like, and again, I guess we're not going to get to the news today, but this way everyone could change some of their views if they want to without it all being, you know what I mean?
It was great. Show was what's his name? But it was Crossfire with
Chris Matthews. No.
No, it was he's on HBO now. Bill Maher.
Bill
Maher had Crossfire. I think it was Crossfire, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Yeah, and you had different views. That was really a good show because you had people on the left and the right, and they actually in real time sound bites, and that was a really cool show. I would love that. Because that's I hate to it's all sound bites, and it's all stuff taken out of context, and I'd rather just hear it directly from their mouths, man. But we don't. Unfortunately, you got to be a professional news reader to get the whole story. Unfortunately,
So anyway, David, we will not have time for the news, but I'm going to save it for next week. So some of it was on video, which made me go in there. But our day flew.
It's a great show. Actually, I think this news was good because we got to just talk about the current state of the news and our frustration with it. And I think that was
right instead of the news. So it is a news segment.
It was technically a news segment. It was news disappointment segment. but but I guess let's I guess start wrapping things up and whatnot. So, well, Neil, let me ask you this, sir. Do you have anything that would interest our viewers, our tens of viewers? But do you have anything that would interest our viewers that you're doing right now? Anything you want to promote?
The big focus is BOSS, back office staffing solutions, the portal. Anyone who does use it, it's evolved. It's like an iPhone, dude. That's what I'll talk about. We keep releasing different levels of software updates that this thing is just never going to be beat by anyone that's rocking. You got to check it out, please, if you're a recruiter, and just go to backofficestaffingsolutions.com/enroll or the easy enrollment. Check out the portal, man. It's rocking. That's all I want to say. It's really good. And we kiss ass. We're there 24/7 for the people, so it's going great. It's taking up all my time.
If you want to be a boss, you know where to go.
And dude, your website. So quickly, the deal on that. It looks phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It looks great. So good.
A lot of heart. Well, I did it myself. That's why it took so long to get up. But
so good, so good.
So for me, the way I look at it, guys, if you want to put together a marketing and prospecting and sales machine, I'm talking, people always argue, and I see this in my groups, and it's like digital marketing automation. No, you get a cold call, get on the phone, and I'm like, guys, if you just put it together, it's not an either or. So if you want to learn how to put all that together in one machine, I'll either teach you how to do it, I'll either do it for you, or you can join the Kinetic Group, my firm, and work underneath me, and then and work in the machine. So I've got options for anybody. So go to the digitalheadhunter.com, and from there just go in, and I've got training, I've got content, all that kind of jazz. So go there and check it out, and reach out to me if you want to either have me teach you, have me do it for you, or work for me. Either one.
God bless.
And with that, God bless. All right, America. That being said, hopefully next week we will still the world will not have ended in a fiery fireball.
I'm putting money on it. It's not happening. I'm good. Well, I feel good about next Friday.
I appreciate you you being on. Love you all. Love you, Neil. And I will see you folks next week. Peace out.
Au revoir, everyone. Be well.